To anybody that's been in my community since January of 2023 and have been waiting for me to put out this video since I promised it then, I'm sorry. Here it is. Oh, I've just realized that my microphone's over. I did the first, 5 minutes of this script and forgot that my microphone's over there. I gotta... Y'all were down there. I need you to be present. I need you to be present for this recording, okay? This being you, I need you to be present. We've all heard the song by now, seen the animations, maybe even taken the test, but what does it actually mean? Soldier Poet King is a song written by the Oh Hellos in 2015 as a part of their Dear Wormwood album. The lyrics take 3 verses to tell us of the characters of the soldier, the poet, and the king, respectively. By some accounts, these lyrics detail the second coming of Christ as he takes on those roles throughout his life and ascension. Others say it's a retelling of more modern events through a biblical metaphor in which the story is the second coming of some unnamed character of the album as they recover from an abusive relationship and rediscover themselves and their life. Others say it's just a fun song about 3 main characters coming together on a journey and lifting each other up. One guy on Reddit is really convinced that it's about sex because it mentions swords, oils, and because isn't every song really about sex at the end of the day? The song has found popularity in the media several times, with the first time being an animation meme that did the rounds back in 2018. The animation, originally by YouTuber Gothfrog, shows 3 characters, each one featuring one of the 3 roles in the 3 verses, before coming together at the end for the uplifting chorus. That original video now boasts 1.5 million views and many replicas as people assign their fan favorites or original characters to the 3 roles and animated them in a similar fashion. We have gotta bring animation memes back. Hi, Editing Sander here. Fun fact, the animation meme came back. It's actually taken on a brand new form just now. It is December 5th of 2025, and we are now seeing a brand new Soldier Poet King trend out. It is an art trend on TikTok now, where people are animating themselves being asked the question, Soldier Poet King, thinking about it and then going, well, obviously I'm a, and then listing whatever they would hope to get on the quiz, and then it cutting to a photo of them animated to whatever thing they actually are, which is so funny because it is exactly the same thing that the trend always takes on. It is never just a trend about seeing what you are on the quiz. It is always a trend about the disconnection between either what you portray yourself as or what you feel like you are versus what you actually are. And that's the whole point of this video. Woo! Love when trends prove me right. In January of 2023, a quiz came out on the site YouQuiz, claiming to sort you into soldier, poet, or king, and that's made by the user Atlantic Sea on Tumblr or Ocean Knives on TikTok. The quiz asks some deep questions with some difficult answers, mostly vague and medieval in nature, before sorting you into your role. People took to posting their quiz answers with the song in the background on TikTok, quickly raising the song back into the ranks of popularity. The trend blew up incredibly quickly as humans historically love categorizing themselves into little boxes labeled with fun psychological things with unique and distinctly different traits, like Hogwarts houses, divergent factions, Myers-Briggs personality types, zodiac signs, and political parties. The red donkeys are stubborn and strong-willed, but the blue elephants are fun-loving and passionate. I quickly watched this trend take a strange turn though. No matter where I looked, suddenly people were protesting their results, talking about how they were soldiers who wanted to be poets, or how poets were actually just kings who had given up. No one seemed happy with their results anymore. The grass was always greener somewhere else. And suddenly, my obsessive little categorizing brain started to make some connections. I sounded like a dweeb there. It's all coming together. First, let me give you a breakdown of what these 3 roles actually are, as I'll dive much deeper in a little bit. In a nutshell, soldiers are those who fight, kings are those who lead, and poets are those who observe. Sounds easy, right? The main characteristics, in the best way I can describe them, break down like this. Soldiers are the people who see both the good and the bad in the world as a fight that they have to win, with most of their focus laying on the bad. These are people who feel powerless in the choice, but know that they have to act on some level. They follow commands at the lead of others for whatever they believe to be the best, and can easily fall into conflict, often against their own will. These are people who have their feet on the ground, heads down, and march on through just about anything, seeking and valuing security and safety above everything else at the end of the day. Poets, on the other hand, are people who observe the world, usually with some level of detachment. They observe both the good and the bad with a level of neutrality, instead choosing to focus on the truth or reality of the situation when you're viewing something passively. Everything is judged through the lens of beauty and appreciation. They can often end up feeling isolated, alienated, or misunderstood in some way, and are way more sensitive to the feelings of themselves and others. At the end of the day, they seek to understand and observe the truth above everything else. Finally, kings are those who observe the good and the bad in the world with a specific eye for the good and their own personal mission to achieve that good. They have a tendency to shoulder responsibility and take on leadership roles whenever given the chance, although it's often done with a sense of requirement as if they have no other choice but to lead. They will also often feel isolated, but this is less about being misunderstood and more about being placed on some level of a pedestal or placed in a position where they believe that no one else can understand or help them through what is going on, that somehow this is their burden alone. At the end of the day, these people value their service to the world and others above all else. The connection I landed on pretty quickly after watching the TikToks flood in was a circle of connection where every role actually envied another role and pitied the other for envying them. It was this never-ending cycle of looking ahead with longing and looking back with contempt. It begins with every king wishing to be a poet, right? To see the bad in the world and not be forced to have to solve it. Free of the weight that is that responsibility, free to play and sing and laugh and set down that cursed crown and toss their hair in the wind and dance for themselves and no one else and just get a chance to be selfish. And every poet who has that instead wishes to be a soldier, to have strength, a way to actually act on all these emotions that they have, to raise a sword beside the righteous fury that burns in their heart, to fight for something, anything that actually makes all of these years of suffering mean something in the end. And the soldiers, these tired fighters, yearn instead to be kings, to have the crown that says that they actually made it through, that they fought and survived and won, to set down their sword and serve nobody else except for themselves, to lead others rather than having to bow their head, to be looked up at rather than gazed down upon. Finally, the opportunity to see this idealism that they fought so long for actually come to fruition. And yet, when we find ourselves back at the king, they look back at the soldiers with sadness, knowing that the crown is just as heavy as the sword, that leading can ache with the same level of loneliness as having to be strong for others, with no other soldiers beside you, and no one else having to make the hard calls. And the soldiers end up looking back sadly on the poets wishing for a sword, knowing that they want to fight, but also knowing the pain and agony it is to have to fight every battle, to raise your sword over and over again, no matter how tired you are. And the poets end up looking sadly back at the kings who wish to be free, but know that to give up the crown gives up the power they have to make meaningful change. That pain is to suffer in this quiet, beautiful silence, trying desperately to bring light and joy to others while completely lost in the darkness yourself with no power to change it. It's this tired, endless cycle of envy and pity that these three forms of people take on, and the connections that go between them like the rock cycle. Hold on, this isn't supposed to be in the script. Hold on. Hear me out, because the kings are the metamorphic rocks, right? Because when you apply a great deal of heat and temperature to them, they form into these really strong glass-like people, forced into these very strong roles, but completely capable of shattering under too much pressure. And the soldiers are the sedimentary rocks. When you break down someone into their smallest pieces and slowly build them back up through difficult situations in life and their constant desire to fight and survive, they become soldiers. And the poets, see, are the igneous rocks, and they are what either type actually melt into. When you give in and melt away the hard shell, the softest, most pure form is no longer built up by shells or rock hard under pressure. Instead, they become poets. All three of them are capable of moving between these states when faced with different life circumstances. But see, therein lies my problem. What is to differentiate a king who is simply a poet under great temperature and pressure from a king who was always a king, but is now being broken down into a soldier? There's too many variables, too many situations and types of people to fit nicely into these base level categories. Oh, person is surprised when they struggle to fit the entirety of humanity into three little boxes, whatever. See, the trend kept getting darker, as no matter what result you get, there was someone else you wished you were, and someone out there wishing they were you. And there is no way to tell what type of king or poet you were, or why three people could all get soldier and be so vastly different. But you see, there is another personality test that also has conveniently attached meaningful songs that I happen to be hyperfixated on at the exact same time, early January of 2023, and these are the 9 Enneagram types. The answers to my prayers. In 2019, Ryan O'Neal, under the musical name Sleeping at Last, released the Enneagram album, 9 songs which showed the 9 personalities at their worst and then redemption as they became their best. I happened to be obsessed with this album in 2023 and was listening to it on repeat, as you often do, on my way to training for my new job, when I heard the song 8 and went, whoa, that really sounds like the Soldiers from that personality type from that one song trend that's going around. And then I heard the song 1 and went, oh, whoa, that song really fits the Kings. And I froze, as my autistic mind absolutely loves categorizing things, and I realized I might be onto something here. I did not focus for a moment in that job training, as I had begun furiously writing out my thesis before running home to release this TikTok. Everybody is already sick of this fucking sound, and you're sick of the whole, I was a soldier, but I was meant to be poet, and I was a king, and I wanted to be this. It's because you're missing the goddamn point. You are only seeing a half of the graph, and I drew it out for you. You see, up and down that side, soldier, poet, king, the things that you were getting, you're missing the top of the graph. The things down the left side are soldier, poet, king, the thing that this quiz gave you, and the top side, that's what you were supposed to be. Those down on the left is what the world made you, and up on the top, born to be soldier, born to be poet, and born to be king. There's not 3 identities, there are 9, which is why you're like, I don't feel like a king. I was meant to be a poet. Yeah, you're type 2, and I can read you for shit. I know everything about you based off of which one of those 9 you are. Listen, I was a little in deep at that point. Don't judge me too hard. But like I said, I had realized that when you lined up soldier, poet, and king types into not just one axis of what you are, but 2 separate axes of what you were meant to be and what the world made you into, suddenly it lined up perfectly to the 9 Enneagram types in a way that made me feel like the gods had reached down and gifted me divine knowledge. And suddenly I had the responsibility to share that with people. Yes, I know, very king-coded of me. So I went live with my chat and did a 4-hour stream where I explained it, and then since everybody has the attention span of squirrels, I made it into a TikTok series as well. Except in making this script, I also realized that I don't think I ever actually finished that series. I'm sorry, number 9s. I promise you'll get your video one day. I have trouble with finishing things. But I'm realizing, several years down the line, that my interest never actually died down, and thus I must fulfill the restless urge to once again impart my pseudoscientific, borderline obsessive level information I have about the grotesque love child of 2 different personality quizzes into one easily digestible chart that I can then use to take apart somebody's childhood traumas and deepest insecurities for the live entertainment of myself and my community. AKA, it's time for another rant video. Editing Xander here one last time, I promise. I just wanted to clarify something about this video. I did not create the Enneagram, nor did I create the Soldier Poet King quiz, but I did create this chart that you'll see me using throughout the video, this one right here, and all of the variations of it, because I have not seen anybody else draw the connections between Soldier Poet King and the Enneagram. If I can find it, this is the original piece of paper that I figured all of this out at, actually at a job training. I'm not lying about that. And the ways that I connected the Soldier Poet King to the Enneagram and created that chart, all of that came completely from me. There is nowhere else on the internet I have ever seen anybody make those connections. If you find anything, feel free to let me know, but I just wanted to clarify, I did not create the Enneagram, I did not create the Soldier Poet King, but I did create the connection between them. So now that you know about the rock cycle, also known as the Soldier Poet King quiz, what the fuck is an Enneagram and where did it come from? Well, according to the Enneagram Institute, the Enneagram symbol has roots in antiquity that can be traced back at least as far as the works of Pythagoras. Yes, that Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher who taught us all how to find the hypotenuse of right triangles in middle school, he also created the symbol that is used in modern-day Enneagrams. This one right here, that symbol. Although, according to the Enneagram Institute, the symbol and its combination with the personality types as we now know only goes back to the 1960s, when Oscar Ichizo was first teaching it. Although the philosophy behind the Enneagram contains components from mystical Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Taoism, Buddhism, and ancient Greek philosophy, particularly Socrates, Plato, and the Neoplatonists, all traditions that stretch back into antiquity. Essentially, it's this special shape that sorts out the 9 personality types and draws lines between them, defining how at their best and worst they integrate and disintegrate into each other. Much more complicated than the rock cycle. So what's the plan, you ask? Well, the situation is I was originally going to make this one long video, and as I started writing and typing this script out, I realized that the single video would probably be 8 to 9 hours long because I'm an absolute lunatic about this kind of stuff, and that's what happens when you give hyperfixation an audience. So I put out a poll to you guys, and you said that you would prefer a 10-part mini-series rather than one 9-hour-long video essay. But fear not, my little autistics, I promise to cater to you all. When I'm done putting out all 10 episodes, I will coalesce them? convalesce them, collate them, what the fuck's the word? Coalesce them. Coalesce them into one very long video. So if you do want to sit down and watch 9 hours of me talking about the Enneagram, that option will be available to you. And if you want to watch them in individual little parts, that's how I'll put them out. So what's the point of this video? Essentially, I've got 3 goals here. One is to introduce the premise of combining the personality types of the Soldier Poet King and the Enneagram quiz. Second is to introduce this chart and kind of explain what it is and how it works. This chart here, and I've got a lot of different versions of it depending on what I need to show in that moment. And third, the Enneagram is really detailed and there's a lot of little moving parts to it, and I will not be spending all of my time in each of the next videos coming out explaining what these different parts mean. So I'm taking this video to dedicate me giving you as much information as you could possibly need about the Enneagram without wanting to detach my head and punt it into the stratosphere. So for now, trust me, take my hand, start writing notes, and let's do this. First is a quick overview of the chart. Across the top are what I refer to as the born to be or meant to be section. If you're taking the test, this is probably the one that you are hoping and praying that you get, even if you don't actually think you'll get it on the quiz. This is the one that you desperately want to be, also known as the thing that you would be in your healthiest state. Now, down the side are the forced to be section. These are your survival tactics, your trauma responses, your coping mechanisms. These are less about your true self and more about the way that the world has shaped you to be. The simple way to look at this is that the top of the chart is your nature and the side of your chart is your nurture. When those two things intersect is where we'll find your Enneagram type. So take a second now, make your assumptions about yourself and where you might land, but listen to all of the videos that come out because you might end up realizing that one fits you far better than you assumed it might, or you might even start recognizing your friends, families, or your favorite characters in the ways that I describe them. I promise that there is a lot more to learn here than just fight, lead, observe. For each Enneagram type, I'm going to go over the nature and nurture instincts that form the new title that I've assigned them, and then dive into the Enneagram types themselves. The thing about Enneagrams is that they best describe very deep-seated parts of people, sometimes known as the way that you learn to receive love while growing up. So this is your disclaimer. I might be discussing childhood traumas, triggers, unhealthy coping mechanisms, mental illnesses, and other dark and sometimes sensitive subjects of our personalities that may be really hard to face, but by doing so can help us grow and become the healthiest versions of ourselves. You might not be ready to know these things about yourself. Some people use the Enneagrams in what's called shadow work, working with the parts of ourselves that we don't want to know or recognize yet. So maybe none of these will resonate with you yet or today, but maybe you'll think about them again in 10 years and realize maybe there's something there. Now, this introduction video is meant to prepare you by explaining both the Soldier Poet King quiz and the Enneagram, but the Enneagram is an incredibly complicated system that people have written entire novels about explaining, and it's hard explaining anything to someone with absolutely zero context of what's going on. So I'm going to go over all of the things that I'm going to lay out in each of the subsequent 9 videos that will come out pertaining to each of the 9 types, and the things that I'm going to go over in each of those videos are going to be the head, heart, and gut triad, the wings, the 3 instincts, and integration versus disintegration. So, taking it from the top. Head, hearts, and guts. The 9 Enneagrams are often sorted into the triad of head, heart, and gut to explain their base instincts for approaching life. All you need to understand is this. The heads are logic-based, focused on detail and observation. The hearts are emotion-based, focused on dreams and connection. And the guts are instinct-based, focused on practicality and action. Now, I wish I could tell you that those 3 line up beautifully with Soldier, Poet, and King, and they nearly do. If you look at our chart here, blue will be our heads, red is our hearts, and green is our guts. And while they don't align perfectly, you see that there is still a pattern on what you are born to be, always having an equal chance to be a head, heart, or gut type, whereas what you are forced to be has a much higher chance to be a specific type, such as nobody forced to be a soldier ends up a heart type. We'll get in deeper to how this affects each individual type in their individual videos though. Wings. Wings are based not on the chart, but off of what number you are on the Enneagram and the numbers on either side of you. Enneagram sorting isn't perfect, so to be inclusive of more complicated and nuanced options for each personality, each type has 3 versions it can be. For example, a type 1 could be a pure 1, a 1-wing 2, or a 1-wing 9. Pure 1s would embody the most direct and obvious personality of the ones, whereas a 1-wing 2 or a 1-wing 9 might be primarily a 1 with some behaviors that begin melding into the wings of their type. But what if I feel like a 1 but could also kind of be a 7? Can I be a 1-wing 7? No. Why? I don't know, man, that's just how it is. You can only be a wing of the numbers directly adjacent to your core type. Wings are also fairly debated in the community, with some people writing the wings off altogether as being overly complicated or unnecessary when typing, but we're going to go over them regardless, as some people might really deny being a 3 or a 4, but if you show them the opportunity to be a 3 with some 4 personality traits, suddenly they click. So for those people, we persist. I do acknowledge that wings will not be accurate or necessary for all people, which is why we always go over the pure core types as the main typing. But if none of these main typings really ring true for you, or you're like, man, I really feel like a 3, but like some of these things just aren't right, but I might be a 4, that's what the wings are for. The 3 instincts. Every person of every personality prioritizes one of 3 base instincts. Those are the social, sexual, and self-preservation. Social is how you interact with the world around you on a very large scale. Society, organizations, large structures of people. Sexual just means intimate one-on-one relationships, not necessarily just your romantic love interest, but friendships, co-workers, any one-to-one interaction you have with another person. And self-preservation, as stated, is about your relationship with you. These instincts help to define how the type interacts with the world, from actions to behavior and thought processes behind them. And while we all have all 3 instincts, one will generally come out on top and can help us define our behaviors even better. These are generally less important than your actual type and are often overlooked by people first learning about the Enneagram. But not you, you're special because you've got me. Yes. Integration versus disintegration. This is one of the most highly contested parts of the Enneagram. Plenty of people live by it, and plenty of people call complete bullshit. It is also where that sacred shape of the Enneagram comes into play. This visual shape shows all of the lines and connections between the different types, with each type being linked to 2 others. Like I said, we're back to the rock cycle, but much more complicated. It is said that each type, when under extreme stress, can disintegrate into the worst habits of another type, and when in a place that they can prosper, can integrate into the healthiest traits of a different type. For example, an 8 is generally somebody who is protective of others, a great boss, a great leader. When relaxed and in a healthy mindset, they can integrate into type 2s, people who are kind, loving, and generous, keeping that same people outreach but in a much gentler tone. But when under stress, an 8 may become more like a 5, someone who becomes withdrawn and self-isolated, possibly feeling like all that they did for others wasn't worth it. That is, at its very most basic, an explanation of integration and disintegration. Some people think that it is completely arbitrary, as they don't see it actively working in themselves, or that the traits described in integration and disintegration are so general that just anybody could relate to them, like people are trying to see and make up patterns where there are none. In which case, I will remind you that this is a pseudoscientific personality sorting quiz with no more medical or scientific backing than Hogwarts houses. All of these people are seeing patterns and drawing conclusions. That's the whole point. All of that being said, this is just the foundation that you need to understand each type as I start to lay them out to you in the actual upcoming videos. If there's anything I skipped over or didn't explain well enough, leave me a comment and I'll either reply right there or I'll work it into the upcoming videos to make sure I go over it. While I work on the next 9 videos, though, is the perfect time for you to start making assumptions about yourself and maybe go out and take those quizzes. Whether it's the Soldier Poet King quiz or the Enneagram test, I can leave links to both of them down below in the description. So if you want to take the test and tell me what you get in the comments and tell me how accurate they feel as those videos start to come out, I would totally invite you to do that. If you don't want to take a quiz, the other way I highly recommend figuring out your Enneagram type is going and listening to that album, Enneagram by Sleeping at Last, and seeing which of the songs makes you sob uncontrollably. I have found it to be a great way to type somebody's Enneagram. Bear with me, I'm going to try not to take forever in between these videos, but until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and personality quiz your dad, or I'll do it for you. There will come a soldier who carries a mighty sword. He will lay your city down, ole, ole, o Lord.